Hi guys, how you doing? I hope well. Please support me and Jerry. Subscribe and like this video. Thank you so much. And we start. First story from user BFS, Best Friend EX. My boyfriend of 10 months is best friends with his ex. She refuses to meet me, and it's getting weird. I started dating my boyfriend Jeff 10 months ago. This relationship has been amazing so far, and I definitely see a future with him. There's just one problem. He has a weird relationship with his ex that's starting to make me really uncomfortable and suspicious. When we started dating, he often talked about his best friend Jenna, who he also owns a business with. He made it pretty clear that she was an important person to him. I knew they had spent vacations together, and he mentioned hanging out with her parents a few times too. A few weeks after I met him, I creeped through all his pictures on Facebook, because who doesn't do that with someone they just started dating, and saw a bunch of very coupley pictures of him and Jenna. I also found her Instagram and looked through it, and it's filled with pictures of Jeff. A bunch of them had the hashtag relationship goals and other similar things. So in this way, I figured out that they had dated. I kept waiting for him to tell me that himself, but he never did. About 2 months after we started dating, I straight up asked him if he had dated her, and he admitted it. He said that they had met in school and had similar ideals and ambitions. They dated for 9 months and broke up a year and a half ago. I asked him why they'd broken up, and he said the relationship was awful, and they worked much better as friends. They started their business after they broke up, and things have, apparently, been going well between them since then. I started to get kind of suspicious about her though, when time passed and I still hadn't met her. I met his friends and family pretty soon after we started dating, but I didn't meet Jenna. I went to numerous social events that I'd expect her to be at, but she was never there. There were a number of occasions when our paths almost crossed, and I really thought I was going to meet her, but I never did. For example, I went to their office a few times to meet Jeff after work, and Jenna was already gone. Or sometimes I'd come to meet him, and he'd come outside to meet me so I wouldn't have to go inside. Things started to get really weird about 3 months ago. Jeff and Jenna were having an open house night one evening. Jeff came over to my place after work, and we had a few hours to kill before it was time to go. So we went out for dinner and then walked to the office. I was kind of expecting that I'd come in and help them set up, but when we were a block away, he started asking me if I had lots of work to do and saying there was a really nice coffee shop nearby. He actually walked me to the coffee shop and sat me down, then left to go get ready with Jenna. He told me to come to the office in an hour and a half. About half an hour before I left for the office, I texted Jeff and said I hoped everything was going well and asked if there was anything I could do. He replied and said, "Something's come up for Jenna and she can't be here tonight." I was getting really suspicious at this point. I went to the office half an hour later, and sure enough, Jenna wasn't there. People kept asking about her all night, and Jeff told them she'd had a family emergency. When we walked back to the car later that night, he told me what happened. While he and Jenna were getting ready, she had had a panic attack and said she was scared to meet me. She said she wouldn't be able to handle it and either had to leave or he had to tell me not to come. He told her to leave, so she did. Since then, a couple more weird things have happened, and I still haven't met Jenna. Once, when I was hanging out with Jeff, we went to the office so he could grab something. When we were almost there, he looked at his phone and said, "Jenna's still there. Let's just go for a walk." So we walked around the block for half an hour and then came back when she was gone. After that happened, I told Jeff I felt really uncomfortable with the situation. I could respect that they were friends who had dated, but the way she was acting about me was very suspicious. He apologized and said he had actually been really mad at her, but wasn't sure what to do. He also told me a couple other weird stories about things she'd done. He went to a party a few weeks ago. I didn't go, and his phone had died that night. When he got home and charged his phone, it was full of texts from Jenna saying she was outside in her car and asking if I was there or not. She actually never even ended up going to the party, simply because she didn't know if I was there or not. Now here's the kicker. Jeff and Jenna are currently on a 2-week-long camping trip. They've been planning this trip since before I met him, but considering the way she's behaved, I feel very uncomfortable about him being on this trip. I just looked at her Instagram, and she's posted 5 new pictures of him. As awesome as Jeff is, I'm really fed up with this, and I'm seriously considering breaking things off when he gets back. Am I being unreasonable? Update. For a few months after I wrote my OP, nothing much happened. Jeff and I continued dating, and he continued being friends, partners with Jenna. I never met her, but everything else in our relationship seemed to be going so well that I decided I'd try to deal with it. Things got really hard, however, when I had to take a work contract 12 hours away from home for 3 months. I hardly saw Jeff the whole time, and I looked at Jenna's Instagram almost every day to see if she'd posted more photos of them together. More often than not, she had. Since I wasn't physically present, I felt like Jenna was his real girlfriend. I felt completely worthless and constantly stressed out, knowing my boyfriend was spending all his time with another woman who I already had suspicions about. While I was away for work, I decided to break up with Jeff. I broke up with Ed as soon as I came back, and I made it very clear that his relationship with Jenna was intolerable for me. I told him he was going to have a hard time dating anyone who wasn't her, as long as she was still in his life. He kept saying he didn't understand why it was such a problem. He told me he couldn't control her behavior, but he promised me he hadn't cheated on me. I explained to him that by allowing their friendship to continue, he was condoning her behavior. I told him I didn't really even care if he'd physically cheated or not, since he'd already shown disrespect for me and our relationship. I didn't speak to him for a few months, and I went on with my life. I took another contract out of town, and even considered moving permanently to another city. One night, though, Jeff called me and apologized. He said he had been thinking about our relationship a lot, and realized he had been in the wrong. He said his relationship with Jenna was beginning to feel toxic to him, and he'd made arrangements to dissolve their business partnership. After that, I decided to meet up with him, not necessarily give him another chance, and discuss the situation further. When we met up, he promised to stop talking to Jenna, and unfollowed her on all social media. As of now, he has not spoken to her in 6 months, and we've gotten back together. We actually ran into her at a concert a few weeks ago, and they didn't even say hi to each other. I feel much more respected and confident in my relationship now. Comments. It kinda sounds like he and the girl were dating, broke up, and then he reached back out to OP. I mean, he didn't fight for OP at all when she ended it, probably because he had the other girl. User existentially there. What's with the negativity? He probably wasn't. I am best friends with my ex, and I absolutely would love to meet any new girlfriend of his. That is, if he has one. But that is only possible if you're completely over your ex. And know that if it didn't work out once, it will not again. Jenna probably never got over him and might have become territorial, which he might have realized later. Next said, I'm actually really surprised to hear you got back together, but I guess the distance, and the fact you legitimately broke up with him, not just take a break, gave him the space to grow up and take another look at his behavior. Best wishes for you both. Nida92. Same thing happened to me a few years ago. When we first got together, he had a best friend that was needy and jealous. She even sent me a few messages saying that even if I was his girlfriend, I wasn't going to take him away from her, that he was her everything, and that he is always going to put her first. To be honest, at first I didn't care that he had a female best friend that he spends time with. But after getting those messages, I told him to sort his priorities out, and that I wasn't going to deal with this childish behavior. He cut all contact with her, and haven't heard from her till 2 years ago, when I saw her at a meeting at work. Turns out, she got hired in the same company I work at, and we even had to spend 3 months at the same location every day. At first, it was awkward, but it got better. She is now married, and I am engaged to the same person, so that is far behind us. Good for you for standing for yourself. Next story, from user discombobulateDowell81. My flatmate has told my boyfriend she's in love with him. I moved into my flat in October of last year to take the place of a mutual friend of mine and my new flatmate. We have a generally great atmosphere in the flat, and both have similar expectations and habits, and while we're not friends yet, as in we wouldn't go out for brunch or be each other's +1s for parties, we are very friendly. She seems super normal and level. When the lockdown began, March, my boyfriend of 2 years was living with his sister, and his mother, undergoing chemo, who lived alone, needed somewhere to stay where she could be looked after. So she moved into his room and he came to stay with us. My flatmate was totally fine, and we had a proper chat about ground rules, etc. But ultimately, the flat is huge for 2 people, and she has a kind of granny flat set up in hers. Either way, she gave definite approval. Now, we 3 got on great, but never really spent a ton of time together. We all work from home and spend the occasional evening playing games or whatever, but ultimately, we didn't mingle much more than before. My boyfriend, however, cooks every night for the both of us, as a thank you, and so we do now eat together, and my flatmate seemed happy to be included. It was great. However, last week, my boyfriend took me aside and told me that while he was in the courtyard hanging out the washing, she ambushed him from behind and gave a huge speech about how she's in love with him. And while she respects he's with me, she has deep feelings for him, and that she's available if he were single. Oh, and please don't tell OP. She didn't try to kiss him, but tried to hold his hand. He was very anxious and flustered when he was telling me this. The flat atmosphere is very awkward now, but as far as she knows, he's not said a word. She's not said anything else to him, but he did mention that she had touched his arm a couple of times as she was walking past recently, and it's really gotten under my skin. My boyfriend is also confused because he hasn't spent that much time with her apart from dinner, and never alone. I spoke to our mutual friend who was shocked and says she's never done anything like this before, and she'd never known my housemate to have a crush on anyone either. I've not seen her acting strangely in any other ways, and it hasn't outwardly affected how she treats me. We can't move right now because virus, money, etc. Update. It gets a little intense, so first I'll just cover some things I wasn't able to in my original post. I trust my boyfriend completely. Even if I didn't, this apartment is large, not massive. I know where that beloved MF is 24/7. A lot of you asked, when after my housemate's confession, he told me about it. He told me a couple of hours afterwards. He explained to me after we had a chat about it that he was afraid I wouldn't believe him or be angry, because at first he thought it was a weird joke that made him uncomfortable, and he felt, rightly so, weirded out. I agree with the bulk of you that her continued touching is harassment, and while a number suggested he just confront her himself, I empathize with being in a situation without breathing room where someone is harassing you. It's not easy, and you can quickly find yourself unsure if those brief moments of crossing a line happened. He's not on our lease, and understandably, he was concerned about me and the power dynamic in the house. Because her room is a mini granny flat, she pays the bigger share. I also don't believe that it was, as some suggested, a hypomanic episode. I have BP too, and while I understand the love rush, she exhibited zero other behaviors and never tried to contact my boyfriend outside of the weird touching. I also can appreciate there's no way she was actually in love. Yesterday, after a tense few days of trying to avoid her, my boyfriend and I were in the kitchen at breakfast, with her around in the living area. I went to our bathroom, she has an ensuite, which is just off the main area to brush my teeth. I walked back out to grab my phone as she was sidling behind my boyfriend who was looking in the fridge, and caught her running her hand and forearm across his lower back, where his t-shirt had ridden up a little. My boyfriend, who didn't see me, yelped really loudly and just lost it. He yelled at her to stop, and when they both saw me, he starts going, "You see? You see? This is what I was talking about." I was furious, just whole body anger, and I could see she had now realized he had told me about her confession, behavior, and just sprinted to her room and slammed the door. My boyfriend and I went out for a walk to calm down, and he kept apologizing for not being more firm, but he was shaken up. Some of you told me I should just confront her head on, which in the moment I 100% sided with. I was so angry for him. He told me he'd rather give her the opportunity to do it diplomatically. I appreciated what you guys said about lockdown being extenuating, and in discussion with our mutual friend, I was willing to believe that an element of it was naivete and a bit of fantasy gone too far. I was willing to be kind to her. When we returned with a plan of action, we knocked on her door, but she didn't answer. We tried a couple of times, but she wouldn't come out, although she was seeing my WhatsApp messages. Come late afternoon, I was just over it, so I knocked and told her I was coming in. I sat her down on her bed and told her gently but firmly it was inappropriate, making us uncomfortable. Told her she had to get the hell over it, herself, if she intended to continue to live with us. She burst into tears and starts crying about how she's so sorry and what a bad person she is. And she can't believe the pressure of lockdown is getting to her, whatever. And I felt bad, started sympathizing, trying to be compassionate. And then she says, "It's just so unfair that the guy I'm in love with has a really great girlfriend." Reader, I lost my shit. Unfair my ass. I told her she had a lot of growing up to do and perspective to learn, and that she owed the house an apology. She started to have a meltdown, a full weeping, hiccuping, snotty meltdown. And then, when I stood up to leave, I spotted in her clothes rack my freaking shirt. I took it and went back to my room. My housemate cried loudy with the door open until 7 p.m. For attention? when I cracked. I used our emergency contact sheet, called her mom, told her she had to come pick up my housemate. I have never met this woman, who came rushing in like a superstar, but the look of annoyance and embarrassment on her face when she arrived and found her 27-year-old daughter having a tantrum told me this wasn't a new part of her personality. My housemate also STFU pretty quickly after she realized her mom was there. They didn't say anything to us, and we just hid in our room until they were gone. I think she'll be gone at least for a while, but I texted her to let her know it would be best if she texted me before she came back. I don't know when I'll see her. Technically, the lease ends in August, so my boyfriend and I think we can make it work and find someone new. And if not, it's not so long till we can resign without her. As a coda to all this, my boyfriend mentioned if she took a blouse, maybe she took other stuff too. I appreciate some of you may consider this an invasion of privacy, but I did go back in, just to check the clothes rack. I found a set of my jeans, my t-shirt, one of my boyfriend's work shirts, a vinyl I owned, my damn charm bracelet from when I was a kid from inside my jewelry box, and a sheet of my old antidepressants. This was just what was on the rack, on display. I imagine there's more in the drawers. I don't know if this was the right thing to do, but I left them there for now, because I don't want there to be any doubt she stole them. There's zero chance she's going to live here anymore. Honestly, I hope she does get help. I'm really angry and violated, as is my boyfriend, but I can empathize with the havoc an uncontrolled mental health issue can wreak on your behavior. And while it's still wrong, it still sucks for her to experience it and lose friends. Comments. Lurky Turkey 113. That's a whole lot of yikes. I personally think you should go back and get your shit. You know she stole it. She knows. Unless you're pressing charges, it doesn't matter. Since some of those items are sentimental, you run the risk of her coming in the middle of the night and taking it all, quietly moving out and never seeing your things again. User Bernalicious111. Not as malevolent doesn't exclude the possibility of a subsequent meltdown, escalating behavior, or even becoming dangerous though. Be careful. Next said, this person thought nothing in taking those items from you. Why should you care about her feeling violated by taking them back? She is old enough to know stealing is wrong. She knows she took them. There was no mistake. It's not like it was just one sock that got mixed in the laundry. This is several items, and one from inside your jewelry box. Take your stuff back, OP, before she swoops in and it disappears. I'd even get a storage unit and start moving your stuff out now. That way she can't scoop up more stuff before you move out. User Kit Mitchell. I would just go ahead and take your stuff back, especially your medication and bracelet. She already stole from you, so if you give her the chance, surely she will try and lie to cover it up. Maybe it's going too far, but if it were me, I would look through her things to retrieve anything else of yours that may be in there. Third story. From Apprehensive Yak 9365. I genuinely think my husband is a psychopath. We've been married for 10 years and have 2 boys. I honestly don't know what to think anymore. About 3 months ago, my husband started sending me really nasty messages while he was at work. At first, it was just mean comments. Stuff like telling me I'm lazy, that I'm a terrible mother, that he regrets marrying me. It was completely out of nowhere. The weird part is that when he would come home from work, he'd act completely normal, like nothing happened. He'd kiss me, ask what's for dinner, play with the kids. The first time it happened, I thought maybe he was having a bad day at work, but the messages kept coming. Sometimes he'd send them during the day, sometimes late at night if he was working overtime. They got worse too, saying things like I'm useless, that I'm lucky he hasn't left me yet, that no one else would want me. The first few times I confronted him, he acted confused, like genuinely confused. He would say things like, "What messages?" Or, "You must be misunderstanding something." I literally showed him the texts on my phone, and he just stared at them and said he didn't send them, claiming he lost his phone. Which he did, but he had a new one and was still texting and calling from that number. I know it sounds ridiculous, but he didn't look guilty. He looked confused, almost scared. I thought maybe he was gaslighting me, but it was such a weird way to do it because he never got angry in person. Finally, about a month ago, I snapped. I showed him a bunch of the messages at once and told him I couldn't keep living like this. I told him if he hated me so much, he should just say it to my face. He kept insisting he didn't send them and said maybe someone was messing with us. At that point, I was done. I packed clothes, grabbed the kids, and went to stay with my parents who live in the same state. They were amazing and helped so much, and I never felt luckier to have a close family. Since then, the messages have continued. Same number, same horrible tone. Things like, "Running to mommy's house just proves my point. You're pathetic. You'll come crawling back eventually." I sent him screenshots back to the same number, and still, he swore again that he wasn't sending them. He just was saying he said he lost his phone at work and had to get a replacement, but he still had the same number, and when he would show me his phone, I couldn't see the messages. I just thought he was deleting them though. He said someone must have found the phone and was messing with me. Last week though, I let the kids stay with him for a couple weeks, since he's still their dad and they miss him. He's still denying everything. Says he never sent those messages, and that he thinks someone is using his old phone. Meanwhile, the texts haven't stopped. At this point, I don't even know what to believe anymore. Either he's lying to my face, or something really weird is going on. Has anyone ever dealt with something similar? I feel like I'm going insane and don't know what to believe. We genially had the most perfect relationship before all this, and I don't know what to do. I'm scared I'm breaking my family apart for no good reason. But some of the texts have been so horrible, I can't even include them on here. Update. I did a lot more research, and some comments helped me investigate. I think I know how the messages are happening from multiple devices. Because we message using WhatsApp. After doing some research, it does allow for multiple devices to be connected to the same account. So it is possible someone else could be doing it from his lost phone. But overnight, the messages didn't slow down. They actually got worse. They weren't just insults anymore. Some of them started to feel like threats. I was terrified. Things about how I'd regret leaving, and some a lot worse. I barely slept last night because of if. At one point, late last night, I finally texted back and said that if the messages didn't stop, I was going to the police. I know a lot of people said not to do this, but I couldn't take it anymore. And I knew that whether it was my husband or not, the person doing this would at least see it. I know I made a lot of people angry that I couldn't just make up my mind on what to do. But here's your reminder. This is my husband, the man I loved unconditionally for over 10 years. Dumping him and blocking him out of nowhere isn't an option. We built a family and a life together. My life isn't a movie I can just cut the last 10 years out, like many of you insinuated, as well as calling me a liar, attention seeker, and pointing out every mistake I made. I know I posted online for help, and I need to accept some hate, but I fear sometimes people on Reddit can just go too far, and I really saw it over the last day. Please think of the harm you cause when you leave a comment. This isn't just social media, it is my current real life. And I know many of you that wrote these probably wouldn't say it to my face. Now, the messages didn't stop. If anything, they got more aggressive. At that point, I was convinced it had to be him, and I decided to be true to my word and actually went into the police station. I saw some comments about being able to track a device to a small location, and you can ask for that if you have the information about the phone, which I got from my husband, and are on the phone plan, which I am. The worst thing about this is me contacting him about the kids and information also went to whoever was sending the horrible messages. I was terrified about putting them in danger and maybe making who was doing this more angry. So I knew it was urgent to get help. At the station, they were able to track the missing phone. I claimed it was just lost because at the time, didn't know if I was going to file charges. Because it was my husband's phone, they actually gave me the location, and the officer who helped was very nice. The address was very familiar and quite close to our house, so I decided to drive past to see where I knew it from. Turns out, I had been to one of my husband's workplace parties there, and the coworker that lives there, I'm actually quite close to. I was angry and honestly just exhausted from it all. The kids were with him, so I went over early to pick them up before he expected me. My mom came with me because I didn't want to go alone. She took the boys so I could talk to him privately. I told him I knew one of his coworkers had his old phone, and how I was disgusted that she was ever someone I considered a friend. By this point, I was absolutely breaking down. When I told him this, he looked shocked. So I asked, why was his phone at her house? And how did she know your password? He just said maybe she took it from work, and I don't know how she knew. But after reading some comments, I was done with these playing it down excuses. That answer didn't sit right with me at all. Something about the whole situation felt off. The messages had been too personal. Whoever was sending them knew things that only someone very close to us would have known, so I pushed harder. It turns out the coworker wasn't just a coworker. She had been having an affair with my husband for over a year. He tried to claim it wasn't serious, but I was sick of him making me feel like I'm overreacting. I know people said this was a possibility, but I just could never bring myself to believe it. I have never felt so betrayed. Everything made sense. She knew details about our relationship, our house, our routines, the kids, things that would be impossible for a stranger to know, all because my husband was telling her everything. I don't know exactly how she ended up with his old phone. He claims he lost it at work and thinks she took it. I honestly don't know what to believe anymore. All I know is that the messages kept coming from that device. And they just kept getting worse. Who knows how far she would have gone? Apparently, when my husband lost his phone, whoever had it kept using it. Meanwhile, he had gotten a replacement phone, but the old phone was still logged into WhatsApp, so technically both phones were tied to the same account. And I didn't even realize WhatsApp wasn't the same as messages, and things like this can happen. Which meant the messages could be sent from the old device and still appear as if they were coming from him, while they wouldn't appear on his phone. Part of me thinks there's no way he didn't realize. The messages were constant. It's hard for me to believe he was completely unaware of what she was doing. Maybe I'm wrong, but my trust in him is completely gone. At this point, I've officially decided to start the process of filing for divorce. This isn't the man I thought I married, and after everything that's happened, I don't even feel safe around him anymore. For now, I'm staying with my parents with the kids. I don't trust him around them right now, and he has seemed accepting over this because of the affair, and he still has to work. The fact that someone who smiled in my face, sat in our home, and acted like my friend was secretly involved with my husband for over a year, and then spent time tormenting me pretending to be him is honestly one of the most disturbing things I've ever experienced, and I still can't even wrap my head around it. I still have this horrible feeling that there's more to the story than either of them are admitting. All I know is I have lost all trust for him, and no amount of counseling could change that. We are done. Thank you all so much for the help. I'm genuinely scared what I would have done if I didn't reach out, cause I never expected this from him. I don't know if there will be another update. I have a lot of recovering to do. I feel like I just lost over 10 years of my life to a lie of a man and need to get used to the idea of starting fresh. I'm so grateful to have my family, and knowing they will be here to support me and the boys through this is the only thing that brings me comfort. There is obviously still a lot more I have to sort out, but I'm safe now. I just want to put the safety of me and the boys first. Comments. User, Dragon's Milk. On the other side, if my partner was telling me I had been sending bizarre messages and I genuinely had not been, I'd want to get to the bottom of it from the very first message. Either someone is damn with my phone, or I have some kind of mental issue I need to be more aware of if I'm denying these claims. The fact that he's been seemingly so nonchalant about his phone number sending those messages says to me it's at least not someone else doing it. Jenny Bear 12. I'd have changed my number to prove I'm not doing it. Switch to Facebook Messenger or something if I'm not willing to change my number. He's absolutely doing it because he wants to say these things to her but won't, and thinks deleting will cover his tracks when there's many ways to prove it's him he's not thinking of. Thank you from me and Jerry for watching. I hope you loved these stories. Don't forget to subscribe that you don't miss new videos. See ya!